Okay. Hey guys, I'm Agatha, and I'm going into fourth year at UT Scarborough. UT Scarborough, yeah. Wait, where's? Okay, I planted one person in the audience so that I'll get a cheer. But anyways, and I will also be sharing my testimony for today. Okay, so can I just get a show of hands to see who is in university right now and or college? I can't actually see. The lights are pretty bright. Okay, and then who else is going into university and or college? Okay, so we have like the majority. Yay! Going to first years, froshies. Okay, so we have a majority of people who are at this age where they'll probably experience something during their first year, or at least some years in university, called failure and or failing. I'm talking about both the failure that you feel when you realize that your grades are not as good as they were in high school, and the literal kind of failing, where you realize that by not going to classes and or doing your readings, you're literally failing your classes. So I think this is one of those things where you're like, yo, you go to university, oh my gosh, like a lot of you will be living living on campus, away from home. And it's just like a whole new experience, so much freedom. And the schedules, you can make your own schedules. Well, depending on what you study, you can make your own schedules, and like nobody's really checking up on you, which is great. But at the same time, it's also, it's a learning curve, let's say. And along with a lot of university students, I experienced that learning curve in a very intense way, where it's like, I am one of those people who, it wasn't until it was too late when I realized that I am failing classes, and I am failing in life, and it sucks. And so, I think it started from when I was in first year and progressed, I don't know, like all the way until third year, where it's like every time when you hit a certain point in the semester and you're like, oh my gosh, kill me now, like I can't do this, where you realize that you're just falling so behind on school, so behind on grades, and like all the commitments that you've made, like to clubs or whatever, or your friends, like you can't do any of that because everything is falling apart because you don't schedule properly, etc. I know like a lot of people don't struggle with this too, but this is a very common thing. And for me, the impact of not scheduling, I guess, and not keeping tabs on my time is that I became very stressed. And then that stress, I don't know at what point it like crossed over, but that stress, it became a clinical anxiety and depression. And this is also, I don't know if you guys know this, but this is also a very common thing for university students. Not to scare anyone, but that's letting you guys know. And I remember there was a semester where I literally had to drop all my classes and like go sign up for counseling at therapy sessions at my school's health and wellness center because it was just so bad. And I've been a Christian ever since I was in grade 5 or 6. I don't really remember, but it was like quite a while ago. And like, it's not a really smooth sailing kind of relationship that I have with God, but I always know that like if I put my trust in God, He'll carry me through. Like He'll answer my prayers. An example is like when I was really small, like in kindergarten, I used to steal a lot. I was like, kleptomaniacs. Like you see celebrities, they steal stuff. That was me, except I was a kid and I was not a celebrity. And like I was addicted to stealing. And it's one of those things where you hate it. Like you don't want to steal, but then you can't help it. And then I've always been trying to stop, but I couldn't. That's what addiction is. Like you can't, like, you need help to overcome things. And then like when I became a Christian, that I was still a kleptomaniac. It was an ongoing thing. And I would pray to God about it, like all the time, because the urge to steal happened all the time. And it, like, God didn't just take that urge away for me, like, right away when I became a Christian in grade 5 or 6. And it was kind of frustrating for me because that's, like, I thought that was what it was about. Like, you know, like, God can do anything, so, you know, he can just take my urge to steal away. But it didn't happen like that. Instead, it was like a progression through the years where somehow, I don't know how because I'm not God, but, like, somehow through the years, my urge to steal just disappeared slowly and slowly. And to a point where I think it was like grade 8 or 9 or something, when I realized, I was like, oh, I can, like, walk into a store without feeling that urge and having to, like, have a mental battle. And then I was like, oh, okay, I guess that's, like, God being faithful, saying that I will answer your prayers, and then, you know, doing it. So, like, I know that God answers prayers, and I know that I can trust him. But at the same time, like, okay, so that's where I come from in terms of being a Christian and knowing how to trust in God. And now going back to the whole thing about failing school and depression and anxiety, I think a lot of the struggle that people often have with anxiety and depression is that you end up blaming yourself a lot. Like, okay, that's a generalization, but okay, maybe for me it is, where I feel like I'm failing myself by not being able to organize myself properly, and by feeling depressed, and I'm failing my parents, and I'm also failing God. Like, I am weak. I don't know how to make myself better, and because I feel that way about myself, then I also feel like I can't go to God, because I can't go to anyone. I can't face anyone because I just kind of fail, and I'm really weak. And so, in that way, even though I knew I could always trust in God, but at the same time, like, I think it's also because I've just been depressed. So then when you're depressed, you feel low, and it's hard for you to, like, be like, oh, let's have a positive mindset. So I remember there was one evening where I was sitting in a park, and it got to a point, like, I've been going to therapy, but, you know, like, the experience is pretty up and down. Sometimes you feel okay, and sometimes you don't. And I remember once I was sitting in the park where I reached a point where I felt like I'm just continually sinking in, like, really, really cold water, and I'm just growing more and more numb. And it's a really weird feeling, and not very pleasant, to the point where I was like, God, like, okay, like, if this is gonna keep going on, like, I don't really want this. Like, if this is what I'm going to have to keep dealing with, I'd rather you just take me now. Like, I'm too scared to take my own life, but I wouldn't mind if you were to kill me now. So that's kind of like where I was at. And I remember there's one verse from the Bible. It's Psalms 143, verse 3 to 4, where it says, "For the enemy has pursued my soul. He has crushed my life to the ground. He has made me sit in darkness like those long dead. Therefore my spirit faints within me." And this is from David, King David, and he was talking about, like, when he was pursued by, like, literal enemies. But how I felt was kind of the same. Like, depression is my enemy, and I don't know what to do. I can't fight it, and it's just, I look to God, and I'm like, God, I can't. And it was like, I remember that moment in the park when I was, like, praying that prayer to God. I was like, God, like, this, I trust you, but this really sucks. And then during that prayer, I was reminded of another verse, which is from Isaiah 41, verse 9 to 10. And it's, "You whom I took from the ends of the earth and called from its farthest corners, saying to you, you are my servant. I have chosen you and not cast you off. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." And I don't know, like, a lot of times when I remember this verse, it's not like I get a special like rush where I'm like, oh yeah, God, you got me, I can do this. It's not really like that. It's like sometimes you think of it, you're like, oh, okay, that's cool. But then like at that specific moment, I was like pulling up my phone and like Googling. Well, I went on google.ca so that like the search history won't show, but I was like, how to kill myself quickly and painlessly. And there are actually some really funny answers. Not to say you guys should all Google it, but it's actually pretty funny. Yahoo Ask is pretty funny. But anyways, like, at that moment when I was Googling that, I thought of that verse and I was like, right, like, this is the God that I believe in. Like, even though a lot of times I don't see immediate results. It's not like, well, for some people, you pray to God and God answers right away. You know, like people have been healed and people who are depressed have suddenly just been freed from their depression. But for me, that was not the case. And right now, I am still depressed and I am still suffering from anxiety. But a lot of times when I am feeling really low or really anxious because I'm in a crowd and I'm like, oh my gosh, too many people, I can't do this, then I think of that verse from Isaiah, and I know this because I've experienced this before. And what I know is that because I've put my trust in God and I've committed myself to be his servant, then he has me. And he called me, and so he will heal me. And to me, that is his promise, and that's what I take him on. Thanks. That is my story, and I don't know who's supposed to come up next, but...